The Chicago White Sox lost again. It's time for some major changes. Let's discuss next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of Southside Showdown, part of the Fansided Network. You can check out my written content at southsideshowdown.com. And also, I have covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Smash the like button and also follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, leave a 5-star review. Well, the Sox lost 7-2 to the Blue Jays last night. It is their 7th straight defeat, 11 defeats in their last 12 games. And that 11-8 stretch the Sox had from late April to mid-May feels like a lifetime ago. That was at least when the White Sox were fun bad. They were even competitive. Now they are back to being historically bad and just flat out tough to watch. Change needs to happen to avoid at least being historically bad. As I've said countless times on the show, the Sox are not lottery eligible next year due to the new rules. So they're not going to end up with a top 5 pick next year. So there's no reward for being historically bad. So I'm going to suggest some drastic changes the Sox should make in the first segment. May not alter where the Sox ultimately finish in the standings, but at least could give the team a chance to being watchable like they were in that 19-game stretch and maybe set up for future success. And then let's discuss Luis Robert Jr.'s eventual return and what it could mean for the team and how the outfield should look once he returns. And finally, it is Way Back Wednesday. But from brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. So if I were in charge, or hypothetically, if Chris Getz was to call me and ask for my guidance on what to do with this awful team going forward, I would suggest these changes. First, fire Pedro Grifol. That's a no-brainer. Clear no-brainer. And it's almost like Lawrence Holmes had this on 670 The Score. It's almost like Pedro's trying to get himself fired. Like he's doing whatever he can to get out of this job because he realizes it's a terrible, terrible job. And also, as Lawrence pointed out, he's probably qualified to be more like a roving instructor or a bench coach. Plus, you have Charlie Montoya sitting right next to him as your bench coach. You have a qualified manager on your bench with success. Now, I know some folks want Ozzie to at least take over on the interim basis over Charlie, but in this case, I think you got to take the guy who can hit the ground running in Charlie Montoya over Ozzie. I mean, Ozzie would be entertaining. He'd be great. I'm one of the people that, still believe Ozzie could be a great manager, but more of that is maybe sentimental. But I think you got to go with Charlie in this case, and then you can wipe the slate clean from Rick Hahn. You can get rid of completely that previous regime and the failure that they had in that rebuild. And Chris Getz then can go into next offseason. He can either remove the interim tag from Charlie or he can get his own guy. And plus none of that, you want to have a clean slate because this roster is going to look dramatically different no matter what happens this season. Why? You have just 2 guaranteed contracts on the books. So you're gonna have to spend some money to bring in some players because of how many players they have right now on one-year deals. So why not get yourself a fresh start? All right, number 2, DFA Martin Maldonado. No-brainer again. 0.083135.131 slash line. Negative 25 RC plus. He's a minus 1.5 F4 player. Chucky Robinson or Adam Hackenberg at AAA can do better. I know they like how Martin handles young pitchers and calls a game, but he is an automatic out. And if you want to be talking about, you should earn the right to stay in the major leagues, Martin Maldonado has lost the right to be in the major leagues. You DFA'd Rafael Ortega, and he had worse numbers. You demoted Braden Shoemake, who wasn't very good. You need to hold the standard to all players playing this bad. And Martin Maldonado, he can't hit anymore. He literally cannot hit. I don't even think he'd have these. I think you'd have these numbers down at single A. You need to move on. Plus, Corey Lee, he should be the everyday catcher. And Edgar Cuero, I'd call him up in September just to give him a taste. Right now, he is struggling a little bit at Double A. I actually watched a little bit of the Birmingham Barons game while the rain delay was going on to start the game. But I'd give him a taste in September. That'd be one of my changes. And Corey Lee would be my everyday catcher. Number 3, I'm going to trade Eric Fetty to the Milwaukee Brewers. I know what you're saying. He always cites the Brewers. Yes, I used to cover them. I do live in the Milwaukee area. But here's the thing. The Brewers have bats in the minors, and the Sox need bats in their farm system. Plus, injuries to the Brewers starting rotation has them having a need for a starter. And Fetty is affordable, and he's under team control for another year. So it makes sense. And I talked to Dave Gasper. He's the site expert of Reviewing the Brew, part of the Fansided Network. And he thinks it makes sense for the Brewers to maybe trade for Fetty, especially with the abundance of bats they have. He was telling me Eric Brown Jr., their former first-round pick, he's a shortstop, or third baseman, first baseman Luke Adams would make sense. And those guys are in the top 30 for the Brewers prospects. Brown Jr., though, does need some work with his swing, according to the scouting reports. But hey, Jacob Gonzalez, he needed work last year, and now he's thriving. And Adams, he had 11 homers last year at low A. But the key is this system needs promising bats. And you should load up the middle. Cannot stress that enough. You should always be getting catchers, shortstop / second baseman, outfielders. With the exception is if you can get a power hitting third baseman. Because again, of the positional versatility, the athletic profile, all that. Number 4, I'm trading Tommy Pham to the Atlanta Braves. They just lost Ronald Acuna Jr. Although I think we're overestimating Tommy Pham's trade value. Got to remember last year he was traded to the D-backs by the Mets for just a single player. And the Mets got Jeremy Rodriguez back. And he is their 11th best prospect now. But he's also at rookie ball. So you're probably going to get a scratch-off ticket for Tommy Pham. But they have outfielder Douglas Glod. He's a hard hitter. Shortstop Diego Benitez, he's 19. Although he's probably going to have to play third. They have outfielder Isaiah Drake. He's got plenty of raw power for being 18. And then Mario Baez, he's 17, and he doesn't strike out that much. Then I'm demoting Andrew Vaughn, and I'm benching Andrew Benintendi. Now, I've resisted the urge to be one of those calling for Vaughn's demotion, but something has to be done. He's hitting 197, and he grounded into a double play that killed a first-inning rally yesterday. He needs to get back to driving the ball consistently. So maybe he just needs to feast on some AAA pitching for a little bit. And you're not going to be benching Andrew Benintendi, or you need to bench Andrew Benintendi. You're not going to be cutting Andrew Benintendi. He's just making too much money. He did have a nice defensive play yesterday, but he also missed the cutoff man in the second that allowed a run to score. He was 0 for 4. He's got a 189, 226, 265 slash line. All right, I'm going to continue with some additional changes that the Brewers need, that the White Sox need to make in the next segment, and also then I'm going to discuss Luis Robert Jr.'s rehab assignment and what his return could mean for the outfield. Next on Locked On White Sox. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And the Sox wrap up a 3-game series against the Toronto Blue Jays. First pitch is scheduled for 6:40 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. And welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. And thank you for making the show your first listen. Again, lots of great White Sox podcasts out there. Tonight, I'm actually going to be on the Blackout Show podcast. I believe I'm going on in the first segment. So I'll be joining those guys. But I just always ask, please make me your first listen. Also, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox. Smash the like button. Also, follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, leave a 5-star review. All right, so getting back to the drastic changes the White Sox should make. You know, I have demoting Andrew Vaughn to AAA that I wrapped last segment up on, and benching Andrew Benintendi. I do think you need to maybe give him that phantom IL stint, or just a straight up benching. You got to play Corey Julks every day, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. Hey, it's time to call up Colson Montgomery. Let's see what he can do, especially since it's a lost season. Now, I know you don't want him to be like Gordon Beckham, or if you rush him up too soon. But Gordon Beckham had a pretty big hole in his swing that he was just never able to correct. But I think it's time we see what Colson Montgomery can do. Maybe give him another couple weeks at AAA, but eventually we got to see, can he be the future at shortstop? And you can always rotate Paul DeYoung's power bat with Nicky Lopez's contact bat at second. Then let's DFA Mike Clevenger and demote Chris Flexen to the bullpen. We're going to replace him in the rotation with Jake Woodford and Jonathan Cannon. Clevenger, he is on the 15-day DL, 15-day IL with elbow inflammation. He's hurt again. Traditional stint. Knowing that he was always going to be hurt every year is another reason why it didn't make sense to bring him back. And while Woodford wasn't great yesterday as he replaced Clevenger in the rotation, he did allow just 3 runs in 4 1/3 innings. He's still 27, so you can see maybe is he salvageable. He kind of did the same thing with Michael Soroka. And as I keep harping on, and I will keep harping it on, Jonathan Cannon needs big league innings. And I'm not going to trade Luis Robert Jr. or Garrett Crochet just yet. I'm actually going to talk about that on tomorrow or Friday's show. And speaking of Robert Jr., he did make his first rehab assignment start yesterday in Charlotte, and he promptly crushed a home run in his first at-bat. The Sox best player has been on the IL since April 5th with a hip flexor strain. He did have some setbacks in his recovery, but hopefully he is set to return very soon. And it was encouraging to see him just blast that one to right field, hit the upper deck in Charlotte's stadium in the outfield in right. But once he comes back, you will have a bit of a log jam in the outfield with Pham and Julks, who are playing very well, and Benintendi's salary demanding that he still play. Thankfully, you can have Gavin Sheets DH every day because he's another one that you sometimes have to rotate in right field. But with Eloy Jimenez on the IL, and while it stinks that Eloy's body will not let him play baseball, at least you can get Gavin every day at bats at DH. Dominic Fletcher, he's the clear candidate to go back down, but you might get a logjam as Oscar Colas is playing well in the minors, and Pedro Gaffal, if he's not fired, did actually compliment the guy that he's buried in the minors. And he might get another shot at the big leagues too. So you're going to have a logjam throughout the season. And obviously one way you're going to clear up that logjam is hopefully trading Tommy Pham. But in the interim, what I'm going to do with what they should do in the outfield once Robert Jr. returns is Fletcher and Colas should stay in the minors until Pham is traded. Again, this is another reason you need to bench Benintendi because you want to play Pham every day at leadoff until he's moved. And you need to see if Julks is more than just on a hot streak. And you got to stop with this matchups. Screw the matchups. Play the hot bats. And right now, Corey Julks is hitting .310 with a .946 OPS since he was acquired in that trade with the Houston Astros in mid-May. And he's still 28. And it can't hurt to see if he is a future big leaguer. Even if he's your fourth outfielder, he should be cheap as your fourth outfielder for the next couple of years. And if he's more than just a fourth outfielder, say he can finally fix the eternal problem in right field. You have a relatively young, well, for the White Sox, he's definitely young, outfield player on a cheap deal, because I believe he's still arbitration eligible. And think about this. Julks has had just one game so far where he has failed to reach base. And if it's a heater, you still ride it out. So Benny goes to the bench or the IL, and your outfield should be Julks, Robert Jr., and Tommy Pham until he's moved. Well, it is Wednesday, and that means it is time to discuss the better times on Way Back Wednesday. And let's talk about the legendary career of Frank Thomas next on Locked On White Sox. And it's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL. And FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. And hey, they got Danny Mendick at plus 160 or 1,060 to hit a home run. Hit one on Sunday. Tommy Pham is at plus 600 to hit a homer. Bo Bichette, he's hit some homers against the Sox. He's at plus 500. Think Chris Flexen can get 5 or more strikeouts? That's at plus 250. The over-under is 8.5. The Sox have scored just 3 runs in this series. The Jays have 12 runs with 7 coming yesterday. So that's an interesting choice to make, but the under is minus 115. Visit fanduel.com/locked on and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And the White Sox wrap up a 3-game series against the Toronto Blue Jays. First pitch is scheduled for 6:40 p.m. Central. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Well, appreciate you checking out the show, especially you everydayers who are sticking with me this far into the show. And I figure I would reward you with going over some of the better days, especially every Wednesday. It's I like to do way back Wednesday. You can do throwback Tuesday, throwback Thursday, retro Friday. So the play on words that I've chosen, way back Wednesday. And the greatest player in franchise history, and yes, I will die on that hill, Frank Thomas, recently had a birthday. Happy birthday to Frank. He turned 56 on Monday. So why not celebrate one of the best hitters ever today? Thomas played 16 seasons on the South Side from 1990 to 2005, and he had a career slash line of 307, 427, 568 with the Sox. In his career, as he played 4 more seasons between Oakland and Toronto, 301, 419, 555 slash line. A 974 career OPS with a 995 career OPS with the Sox alone. The big hurt, he hit 521 career home runs with 448 of them coming for the Sox. And that is still a franchise record. Paul Konerko, I believe, got close. He was at 436. And I don't know if anybody's ever going to touch that record. He ranks 6th all-time in franchise history in batting average, 1st in on-base percentage, slugging, and OPS. I mean, that was the great thing about Frank Thomas. You knew he was getting on base at least once a game. He was going to take his walks. He had a great eye. He went to 5 straight All-Star games from 1993 to 1997, and he won 2 MVPs in 1993 and 1994. And I feel like I have to explain the greatness of Frank Thomas to Generation Z, who was robbed of seeing his greatness in the 90s. And then for my generation, it's just a chance to revisit probably our first hero. And think about this. In 1993, he hit 317 with 41 homers, 128 RBI, and a 1.033 OPS. That's insane. And he hit 353 with a 1.122 OPS in the 1993 ALCS. So he shined in the biggest moments. Too bad the White Sox could not win a game in New Comiskey Park. They got down 2-0. I was at game 1, I remember. I was 11 years old. My dad took me out of school early. The ticket cost $40. I had to do yard work for like 4 years to pay that off. And then it was all dampened when Michael Jordan decided to retire. And I remember when that news broke out in the ballpark, everybody was like, oh man, really? That's happening? And I remember you didn't want to go to the bathroom because the bathroom lines were just outrageous. But then the Sox go to Canada, tied up at 2-2. But then lose game 5, and again they just could not beat beat the Blue Jays at home. Jack McDowell and Alex Fernandez just did not have it in that series. In 1994, Frank hit a career high 353 with 38 dingers, 101 RBI, along with a 1.217 OPS. He had a ridiculous 212 OPS plus. Remember, league average is 100. So he doubled league average and then added 12 more points. And it was, just imagine what he would have finished had the players not gone on strike. And he probably would have gotten a World Series ring that year. I'm going to die on that hill too. The Sox were going to win the World Series in 1994. And if you were born in the early 1980s, Frank was probably the first legit superstar you saw on the South Side. My generation, we had good players in our childhood like Ozzie Guillen, Harold Baines, and Carlton Fisk. But Fisk was getting old by the end of the 80s. Baines was traded in 89, and he was usually hurt in 87 and 88. And Ozzie, he was the scrappy, solid all-star player, but he wasn't a superstar. He wasn't a draw. Frank was a draw. He could crush the ball a country mile. And what made him great, too, is then he could just easily smack an RBI single. He was an offensive genius. He finally won a batting title in 1997 with a 347 average. But what was hard to see was personal issues and injuries started to erode some of his skills. And it started in 1998 when he hit just 265. I know he was going through, I believe he was going through a divorce that was kind of dragging on him. Also, he made some bad investments. I remember he was always arguing with Jerry Reinsdorf about money. And in 1999, he just belted. He belted just 15 home runs, but then he came back with a vengeance in 2000 when he had a 328, 436, 625 slash line, a career high 43 home runs, and 143 RBIs. And he should have won the AL MVP that year, and he still should have it. And he should have been awarded it later after Jason Giambi admitted to doping. And I get it, steroids were not bad, but Frank was always outspoken on his stance about being against using PEDs. He didn't need to, and the guy was massive. And he could hit like Ted Williams. And he should have won the MVP that year. I'll die on that hill too. Although it was too bad Thomas went hitless in the ALDS against the Mariners. Although the Sox in 2000 were not going to beat the Mariners just because the starting pitching just completely fell apart with all the injuries. They were going to have to slug their way, and Seattle had a decent starting rotation that year. And Jay Buhner just destroyed the Sox. But age and injuries again started to take its toll on the rest of his White Sox career. He only played in 34 games in 2005, which is a shame because that's the year he finally got to be a part of a World Series team. Although he was vital in helping the Sox win the AL Central that year. Because during those 34 games, he hit 12 home runs. And the Sox, that's when the Sox were starting to cool off. And they really needed a boost, and Frank provided that. But the Sox let Thomas go after the 2005 season in favor of bringing in Jim Thome. I remember Frank was not happy about that. I really hope he did not curse the franchise on his way out the door because Sox have not won a playoff series since. He went to Oakland, hit 270 with a 926 OPS and 39 homers that year, and helped get them to the ALCS. Thomas finished with a 73.8 career B WAR. He played mostly DH, but no one was paying to watch him play first base. We were paying to see him crush the ball. And I was lucky enough to see him hit a lot of home runs at Old Comiskey or at New Comiskey Park. When he blasted that ball, it was amazing to see live. Thomas went into the Hall of Fame in 2014 after he finished his career in 2008 with the Blue Jays. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Before I go, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. And I'll be back tomorrow to discuss the Sox wrapping up their series with the Toronto Blue Jays. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube page at Locked On White Sox, smash the like button, and give a 5-star review on wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, let me know your thoughts on today's topics and regarding the drastic changes the White Sox should make, Luis Robert Jr.'s eventual return, and way back Wednesday with going over Frank Thomas's career. You can leave them on Twitter at ToddJDub, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.